Okay, so you may have noticed that it was St. George's Day yesterday. And
I did.
Yeah, that was nice. And of course, we've renamed St. George's Day to the day on which progressives tell us that St. George was Turkish and not English.
Was
he?
he?
Not correct.
I don't think he was.
No, of course he wasn't Turkish. He was a Greek Cappadocian man who served in the Roman army about 1,000 years before the Turks arrived in Anatolia.
So Greeks and Turkish are being made into the same thing over here. I think Stelios is going to be furious about
average
this
Turkish
news.
man, yeah.
Oh, God. He's going to come through with a scimitar in a moment.
Yeah, but if you want to support us, go over to lotus.com and check out this book club I did on Roger Scruton's book, Where We Are, which was one of his last books as an analysis of the very nature of what Britain is and the problems that it faces. And the reason I've chosen to promote this in this particular segment is because I think it's actually appropriate, because Scruton has a great point about the concept of the term we. What is the shared constituency of we? Because, I mean, if you think back to the American Declaration of Independence, we the people. Okay, well, who's this we we're talking about then? Right? There's already a constituency there who have sentimental bonds with one another. And so essentially that undoes the liberal claim that societies just come together in the state of nature, blah, 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 right? And so this is a particularly important way of looking at things, because it's not ideological, right? It's a lot more, conservative, I think is a nice way to put it. And so this is the prism that I'm going to be looking at this particular segment, because Sadiq Khan posted about St. George's Day, and we'll get to it in a minute. And it just really rubbed me up the wrong way. There's a lot of claim to a we and an our and a shared culture. And I'm like, I don't really feel like I share much with not only just the progressive left, but the sort of, people who are also immigrants, who are also very left wing. And I think there's a clear distinction to be made. People who immigrate, who like the place and try to integrate and try to improve the place. People who immigrate who then try and change the place.
Well,
right?
Sadiq Khan would be the first to cry grievance at any English person. So
Exactly.
He's got no right to say we when it comes to the English or even the British people.
Yeah. And so, I mean, if you want to see the average Englishman's celebration of St. George's Day, Nigel Farage is a great example. Having a pint at the George and the Dragon pub. I mean, that's pretty bloody English.
Yes.
So I enjoyed that. Lee Anderson, Conservative Deputy Chair, had a good one. Just proud to be an Englishman, which is not something we normally hear from politicians. So I thought I'd share that. And I think this is another good one that I found on Twitter from a Mandeep Bogal, a Sikh man. This is a great example of just how to be a patriotic immigrant into Britain, right? Notice how he says it. This is my flag, this is your flag, this is our flag. God bless England and the cross of St. George, which unites us all to proudly call this green and pleasant land home. Be proud of this England of ours, the most warm-hearted place, this force for good. Happy St. George's Day. There's nothing in any way that is subversive or controversial. He's not attempting to muddle identities. He's not attempting to insert like a foreign identity into being English. This is just a bold, strong, impassioned endorsement of our country, right?
It's just nice.
It's just nice, right? It's just nice. And everyone looks at that and goes, oh, that's great, right? The Conservatives could have said something like that, but no. Just happy St. George's Day to everyone across England.
And they've even covered up most of the flag
as well. If the German army was squatting in Coventry or something, they'd be like, well, they're across England. Happy St. George's Day to the German army, right?
Yeah, well, what about English people, Tories?
Exactly. Right. See, Amandeep, his endorsement, his statement was so much better than the Conservative. But I mean, like, okay, moving on, the Labour Party, happy St. George's Day from all of us at the Labour Party. That's actually better than the Conservative one.
I was going to say, I prefer the aesthetic of this one.
Yeah, I know, right?
Because it's not covering up most of the flag.
I know. And it was just like, okay, this is weird because, I mean, the Labour Party...
Once again, Keir Starmer is taking a very different tack with this new one. As the election's coming up closer, he wants the red wall to re-establish itself.
He does. I mean, don't trust the Labour Party. They're going to betray you the very second they have a sniff of power, right? But also the Conservative Party are awful, as you can see me there. You brought millions of foreigners to rub our nose in diversity, but don't forget.
There he is. Carl Benjamin, Labour Party's top reply guy.
I am, yeah. But I'm also the top reply guy of the Conservative Party, and you're also terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, even then, this is not terrible, right? So there was nothing from King Charles III about St. George's Day, and people noticed. I mean, there was an Eid speech that he had made on Eid. Happy Eid. Not Happy St. George's Day, though. It's Really interesting.
Thanks, Charles.
And the reason that I should have had these the other way, actually, but you may remember that the Labour Party is a congenitally anti-English party, which, as in 2014, Emily Thornberry had to resign because she saw some English flags and recoiled like a vampire in front of a cross.
Did she have a stroke or something?
Yeah, no, she actually did. She was just like, ugh. And so she had to resign. But one Labour MP for Rochdale, Simon Daszak, said that the Labour Party has been hijacked by the North London liberal elite. Even in 2014, but also still now, people can see that there's a distinct anti-native sentiment in the Labour Party, an anti-English sentiment. And that's why it was so important that the Labour Party had just posted this massive, unreserved, Happy St. George's Day from the Labour Party. So that's not normal, right? That's actually not normal. That's a celebration of England.
They need to win industrial Lancashire back. That's what they're trying to do.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to do, yeah. I mean, I personally really liked the one from the Reclaim Party because this, I think, is probably my favourite Churchill quote that sums up my feelings on it. And then you had other people who were posting just, what they felt about those things. And then you had a chap called Thomas Skinner who posted this. I just find it mental that I've already received a DM saying you should take down the post about St. George. It's not a good look for you.
A Bosch Tom Skinner?
Yes,
Bosch.
it is,
I love this guy.
Yeah.
He's lovely.
Yeah. And he's like, when did it become bad to be proud of where you're from? I'm proud I'm English. I love our culture, cups of tea, pie and mash, pubs, Stonehenge, Royal Family, Tower of London, Lake District, Oasis and the Beatles. Football on the weekend, blah, blah, blah. He carries on, right? Like millions of wonderful people from all over the world are proud of where they are from. I am too. And I'm not afraid to say it. Happy St. George's Day. Let's hope West Ham get 3 points and your roast dinner's Bosch, right? So... there's nothing wrong with that at all.
That's a great picture he's used as well.
Yeah, it's a shame it's of Parliament.
Yeah, but Parliament's a gorgeous building. It just needs to be repurposed for something useful.
Yeah, like a prison. For MPs.
For the MPs, yeah. Well, surely we just convene Parliament and then just lock the doors.
That is a good idea.
And then they just sort it out from there.
Yeah.
Tom Skinner, for a little white pill, I think he's also recently announced he's having twins with his missus.
Congratulations.
So that's really lovely for him. He's a nice guy.
Yeah. And so, these were the sort of generally... okay takes, actually.
Patriotic.
Yeah, generally patriotic. Nothing unusual. And then you got like the EU flag displayers, the FP Pro follow back pro Europe types.
People who don't care about England.
No, this is St. George. His dad was from Turkey. No, he wasn't. His mum was from Syria. Okay, they were still Greek. He was a Roman. No, he was Greek. He died in Palestine. He never visited England. He didn't kill a dragon. He is a Christian saint. He's a Muslim and Jewish prophet. Happy St. George's Day. It's like, do you have to do this? Is now the time? Like, what was it about St. George that made you think that he had to, like, it wasn't a claim of ethnic purity. St. George, the first Englishman, I mean, he lived before England existed as a state. Like, so obviously he's not English. But of course, the reason that the English like St. George is because he represents heroic virtues, heroic Christian virtues that the English saw within themselves. And I mean, you get like...
These people aren't able to... The leftists generally aren't able to understand any kind of virtues or any kind of representation that doesn't directly represent them and what they identify as in that moment is the problem.
But it's also they hold a caricature position of patriotism, right? They say, well, I mean, if it's not from England, you're not allowed to like it. And it's like, why? Why? Like, why do you go to the most pure blood and soil nationalist position when it comes to patriotism? Like, if... And the thing is, it kind of implies, okay, but if there was a stone found tomorrow with engraved in it, here lies St. George, the first Englishman, they'd have to recant and go, okay, no, you're right, absolutely. Blood and soil nationalism. It's like, because they've set the standard. And if it can be validated, then they have to accept it, right? And that's not a standard I actually want to adopt. Like, I'm not saying that.
They won't hold themselves to any consistent standards or anything. They will always just find what's the anti-English position.
Exactly.
And they will go with that.
Right. And now they don't do this to say St. David, who wasn't Welsh, or St. Patrick, who wasn't Irish.
But they weren't. But
St. Andrew, who wasn't Scottish.
But they're not English icons, are they?
Exactly. They only do it to the English, right? If we go to Kevin Maguire's lovely tweet, Happy St. George's Day when we wind up English racists venerating a migrant worker born in what is now Turkey, who in 2023 they'd bar from Britain. Why would English racists venerate a migrant worker? I mean, George wasn't a migrant worker. He was a member of the Roman army. But okay, whatever. Doesn't matter, Kevin. You just have to sit there and go, I hate England.
Also born in what is now Turkey. So not Turkey at the time.
Yes, not Turkish.
Therefore not Turkish.
Yeah. Anyway, there are lots of amusing parodies. I mean, which St. George are we talking about? Really? Obviously not that St. George.
St. George Floyd's Day?
Yeah.
That's every day
Yeah,
in my
exactly.
heart.
That's every day. No, I like this particular one, though. St. George was English, isn't it? He was English, born in England, Anglo-Saxon ethnicity, supported the monarchy, favourite drink was Carling, killed a literal dragon that was in Britain illegally. It was an Asian dragon, part of a grooming gang, supported Brexit.
He sounds like Jesus. A good lad.
Yeah.
Bosh.
Just like Jesus. But the point of bringing this up is not only is it hilarious, right? But you can see that there is a particular sort of strain that goes through this, which, especially in the supporting Brexit part, that is, there are characteristic English opinions that are distinctly English. And one of them is the national sovereignty. Actually, England always has been. And Paul Mason, actually, of all people, to quote on this, radical communist Paul Mason, did an interview on Navarro Media a while ago that I was watching. And he was like, look, English radicalism has always been about sovereignty. It's always been, and it has always been about sovereignty. Think of like Henry VIII and his break with Rome and things like this, right? And this has been a consistent theme since the Norman conquest, incidentally. Well, actually, no, since the Viking invasions and Alfred the Great, right? So it's always been the ethos that in England we should have a sovereign country, right? That we rule ourselves. And so this brings us to Sadiq's video, right? And
must we?
Yeah, we must. And
I was enjoying the memes.
And again, like, I don't actually hate Sadiq Khan, right? I actually, the more I do this, the more I view him as basically a confused man who doesn't really know who he himself is, or he's completely lying, right? So
I know where I'm going with it.
I'm going to be charitable and suggest that he's just confused, because I'm a lovely guy like that, right?
Which he was so confused when he commissioned the BLM fist in the fireworks for New Year's that other year.
I mean, I would say you'd have to be confused to do that.
Okay, all right, I'll run with it. I'll run with it.
Like, he was just like, oh, look, it's St. George. I've heard about St. George. The English love St. George. I'll get that fist up there. Let's watch this
That's
video.
just him punching a dragon, obviously.
As mayor of our nation's capital and as a proud Englishman, I'd like to wish everyone a very happy St. George's Day. St. George's Day is a moment for English people from all communities and all generations to come together and draw inspiration from our shared culture, history and democratic values. As a nation, we have so much to be thankful for and proud of. From our incredible NHS and key workers to the compassion of families who open their doors to strangers fleeing conflict. Not to mention Shakespeare, the lionesses, fish and chips and plenty of cups of tea. Today, we're reminded why we love our home, why we'll always be proud to be English, and why we look forward to the future with hope and optimism. Happy St. George's Day.
Was King Offa fighting for democratic values?
No.
No, of course he was. Was he fighting to open the floodgates?
No, I mean, I wouldn't even say Oliver Cromwell's fighting for democratic values.
No, of course they weren't. Democratic values is considered in the modern era something that's been basically imported over from America. And
so this just rubbed me the wrong way, right? And going back to Scruton,
you're not English, Sadiq.
Well, no, he's not, and that's the thing.
And he's outside of this video, he'd be the first one to tell you that as well.
Well, actually, we've got a tweet from him that is very interesting. He tweeted last year, "I'm proud to be English. I'm proud to be British. Proud to be European. And proud of my Pakistani heritage. We can be all of these things at once. Our multiple identities don't conflict with each other. They complement one another. They make us stronger, not weaker." St. George's Day. This was last year's St. George's Day tweet. It's like,
okay, is this?
What are you talking about?
Is this why, like, Pakistanis and Indians over in that country, when they hear that England's got an Indian prime minister, are like, "Oh, yeah, I guess we're winning then."
Maybe
Sarkar, we're winning,
maybe,
lads.
but like, this is what I mean. Like, he's a confused man, right? Because notice when in the previous video where he's like, "Yeah, it's like we English." It's like, I don't see myself as part of a shared group with you. I feel like you're a bit of an imposition. Actually, I mean, you preside over a city that is 40% immigrant and 37% English, and you don't say anything.
Well, so it's also
right.
I know you don't like racial politics. I don't even think this is racial politics.
No, this isn't racial.
To point out that English people is an ethnicity.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's obviously true, and it feels really sickening to me that England has basically been gaslit by American-style reframing of history into thinking that we're some kind of propositional nation. America, well, yeah, you have the argument that nowadays anyone can be an American as long as you've got the... No, English is a distinct people that has descended from over 1,000 years since before the Norman conquest.
You gain Englishness by being descended from English people, right? That's just how ethnicity works.
And the British Empire expanded what it meant to be British, so that you didn't just have to be from this island.
And exactly, and you can't argue that Sadiq Khan is not British. I mean, if you go to his Wikipedia page, he was born in St George's Hospital in Tooting, right? Because his parents fled the partition of India, presumably because they were tied up with the British administration. And they came over here, and
I'm happy to call him a British Pakistani.
Yeah,
but he's not English,
which of course he is. You know, which is in no way like derogatory or othering. He is of course a British Pakistani. That is just a factually true statement. And so when he's like, "So we fellow Englishmen," I'm like, "Okay, Sadiq, that's weird and creepy." Actually, and
I'm going to go to Pakistan. Hello, my fellow Pakistanis.
Exactly. Exactly. When the British were being kicked out of India, all of the British had to leave. They were like, "Hey, fellow Indians," because the Indians were like, "No, get out English," you know. And
does this make George Orwell Indian?
Well, exactly. Is Rudyard Kipling an Indian now? And of course, on the Wikipedia bios, they say English, right? And so this tension is something that Sadiq Khan seems to think we can just sit on, where he's like, we can be all these things at once. It's like, not really. You are a Pakistani man of British origin who lives in Britain as the mayor of London. That's you don't have to. And like the Sikh guy who was like, "No, I love England." Okay, he's not saying, "Look, now all the Sikhs are English as well." He's not saying that, right? And we're not saying that you can't be here either. And actually, it's nice when people who aren't English support England, right? It's a flattering thing.
Yeah, we're a great country.
Yeah, but it's a flattering thing, and so it's a very desirable thing. And so, on one hand, I'm not against Sadiq Khan trying to say positive things about England, right? Although in his video,
it just comes across so disingenuous.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say it's totally disingenuous because not only is he like, I'm also an Englishman. It's like, well, you're not. You're a proud European. You're pro Remain. You're pro like just communism.
You're a globalist.
Yeah, you're a globalist, and you're pro mass immigration. So like the things that the English people generally want, which is like sovereignty and reduced immigration, as two major ones. Sadiq Khan's totally against, and he's described himself as a proud European, which the only people I've heard saying that are EU Remainer types, who I'm happy to deport to the continent. But the rest of it was full of just progressive talking points. Oh, NHS. Oh, refugees. It's like...
But he did say fish and chips at the end.
Yeah, exactly. And lazy stereotype.
Yeah, there you go. All of English history can be condensed down into fish and chip nationalism.
Exactly. Whereas in the previous segment, if it said something about an Englishman's right to be armed and self-defense, I'd be like, okay, fair enough, Sadiq, I'm listening. I'm actually... No. It's about refugees and bloody...
nothing about English courage,
and the NHS.
Valiance, nothing like that. Going off.
Not fair-mindedness, not constitutionalism, not the rule of law.
Beating the savage hordes in the Crusades.
No. And so it's just like, it's progressive talking points that he's trying to smuggle in under the guise of being an English patriot. And I'm not having it. I'm not having it. There is no we between us, Sadiq, as far as I'm concerned. I just find it really offensive. I just find it really offensive that you'll sit there and say, oh, the heart of Englishness is the NHS. It's not. It's the heart of socialism. All right. And like I said, it's not like Sadiq Khan hasn't got like a questionable history. I mean, is this the history of the average Englishman, is it? Like Sadiq Khan and his terrorist or jihadi or Islamist related family members. Like average Englishman.
Well, who isn't related to a terrorist or two?
Exactly. Like Ash Sarkar being like, yeah, I support my Bengali ethno-nationalist terrorist aunt driving the British out of India. Hi, I'm English. What are you talking about?
I mean, from the perspective of those people, I mean, that's a fair position to take, but you're not English.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, fair enough.
That's not an English position to take.
Exactly.
Anti-English is not the English position.
This came from a smear campaign when he was being re-elected as mayor of London. So, it's not kind to him. But I mean,
is it true?
Yeah, he spoke 9 times alongside Suleiman Ghani, average English name, a hardline imam based in Tooting, on the night of the Paris massacres, joined a campaign for the Islamic State. Like, yeah, and Sadiq's like, hello, fellow Englishmen. It's like, no, I don't really see you that way.
Fancy some fish and chips,
Yeah,
pal.
Exactly. And I don't really want to be like in a particular like sentimental bond with a person like that, actually. But anyway, I'll leave it there because it goes on. But if we just go to the last one, next one, right? So this is Sadiq posting about the Silver Jubilee and the Platinum Jubilee, where he was present at both, right? And so this is what I mean. Like, I don't think that he's not proud to be British. I don't think he is actually, but I think he has a particular view of what being British is. And now he's trying to encapsulate this into being English. And that is just a series of progressive talking points. I don't think he actually hates this country. I just think that he's a bit confused in and of himself.
I think he does hate this country. Certainly he hates what this country used to be before all of a sudden every establishment institution decided that it wanted to just parrot progressive talking points.
Entirely possible.
If you were to go back 500 years, Sadiq Khan would not be in support of what this country was.
Possibly not, but I'm going to be charitable and suggest that Sadiq Khan is just a confused man who doesn't understand that he is trying to advocate to be contradictory things all at the same time and expect everyone to go along with it. I just find it kind of repulsive, actually. I don't think there's a we here, Sadiq.
We hope you enjoyed that segment from the podcast of Lotus Eaters. If you did, you can go to our website where you can get the podcast in full, uncensored, and for free, as well as paying as little as £5 a month to get access to all of our extra premium content. For example, this video presentation I did on how real communism has already been tried, looking at the texts and history of Marxism. And if you'd like to see all the rest of the content that we're putting out, you can follow us at lotuseaters_com on Twitter and on Getter. Until next time, goodbye.